Welcome to the Back Office Show, your peek behind the privacy curtain of successful healthcare operations. Get ready to learn how every bedpan is a potential gold mine in every staff meeting, a strategic summit. All right, I'm getting a little carried away here. Get ready to learn from the grandmasters of healthcare, their secrets for success. And now, let's welcome your host, Steve Shane.
Welcome to the Back Office Show. I am really happy to have here today Tom Parker, who's the Senior Director at Florida Healthcare Association of Policy and Reimbursement. Tom, did I get it right? Did I say your title right?
You did. You got it right, Steve. They keep adding to it over here, so I try and keep it, have a hard time keeping it straight sometimes.
It's hard to say in one mouthful, but if they're adding to it, that means you got more to do. So you're a busy man. We know that.
Yeah, and I just find myself busier by the day, but it's a good busy. It's helping people who need the help, so I'm happy to be able to do it.
Good, and we applaud you for doing that because we know, at least I do from our conversations, but I'd love if everybody else learned about what you do to help everybody. But before we get even started with that, I think my listeners would like to know this because when they see your name, they're probably going to want to know, are you related to the boy band singer, Tom Parker? Any relationship or connection? Do you even know who that is?
I don't. I do get the Colonel Tom Parker a lot, but you're probably not old enough to know Colonel Tom.
I do. He was Elvis's manager, right?
He was, but I get asked a lot, hey, it's the Colonel. So
that's a good nickname.
No, but I don't know the boy band singer you're bringing up. That's a new one to me. I haven't heard that one before.
Do you sing, though?
Not well.
I actually think you'd make a good manager for Elvis. Focus on quality, focus on his reimbursement. You might do a good job if you did have that position.
Yeah, that would have been an interesting job to have for sure.
I don't know. I just figured you may have Googled your name at some point. Everybody does it at some point, and you may have seen that. When we were doing research, it popped up.
Yeah. No, I've never gotten that one. Like I said, I get the Elvis. That's the one I get when I Google my name. Normally is the Colonel.
Cool. Well, either way, I really wanted to talk about the wonderful work, like you mentioned, that you do at the Florida Healthcare Association. You've been with the association for 9 years now, correct?
That is correct. It was 9 years in November.
Congratulations. And the Big Ten, I hope there's a big party planned.
Let's hope so. We're, it's always around the holiday time. So, I just tag on to some other parties and just make it be about that.
Okay. Cheaper that way. And you've been working with Emmett for how many of those years?
The whole time. Emmett was running the association. He'd been running it for about 4 or 5 years when he hired me. So he was a hard guy to say no to. I tried a few times, but he wouldn't take no for an answer and convince me to join the team.
Good. We're all happy that he pushed you ahead. And I think that people don't understand exactly what goes on in a day-to-day in your position. I know just today you were busy with some annual work that was going on. A typical day in your position, what does that look like? Yeah,
I mean, there's one of the things I do enjoy about it, Steve, is there's not a typical day, right? Every day is something new. I mean, today it was had a couple bills up in front of legislative committees, so kind of shepherding those through the process. Working with some House and Senate staffers on some budget issues that we're trying to get done this legislative session. Was helping a member who's having some ambulance getting billed, his ambulance billing issues. So working through some of those, helping another provider get some nurses being brought into the country and some of the challenges within the Florida law about making sure we can get those people to work faster. So it's a little bit of everything every day.
I like those examples. It happens to be, you mentioned it happened today, but you're helping on an organizational side and you're also helping on an individual side, an individual provider, even an individual who needs help. That's really interesting. When your phone call rings, you have no idea what to expect.
Yeah, no, I mean, and it's, and again, as I kind of mentioned earlier, when I was hired here, my role was really just to do reimbursement work, right? To support providers on budgeting, kind of trying to understand their Medicaid rates, helping them work Medicare managed care challenges or Medicaid managed care challenges. And then, really learn the legislative process and have been more and more involved on that side. Policy issues, understanding statute and rules and regs, that stuff has happened. So yeah, I mean, it's just, it continues to grow, and I just keep getting to do more, and I really enjoy it.
Are you concerned there will be a point where you just at capacity? I'm done. I can't do anymore. Guys, find somebody else to do the next thing because I'm up to here.
I've got a great team that I work with, so we all try and help out where it happens. So this time of the year with the legislative session going on is a little busier for me, but then we kind of get to the summer and that's conference season, and so our event team's a little busier at that time, and everybody just kind of pitches in and helps out where we can.
Sounds like you're not concerned. That's great. I don't know if our listeners know. So the Florida Healthcare Association represents majority of the skilled nursing facilities in Florida, which is over 700, correct?
Yeah, there's about 705 nursing facilities in the state of Florida, and our membership is, I think it was 615 as of last week. So it's about 88% of the nursing facilities. We're trying to get to 100. We get a little closer every year.
That's amazing. That's amazing that of your membership. It's also amazing the amount. I believe that's Florida is one of the top 5 states in the country in regards to how many facilities are in the state. Isn't it a certificate of need state? Why are there so many skilled nursing facilities in Florida? Do you know? Have you it's unequal?
It's the senior population. We have a really large senior population here, and it just it continues to grow. It's a great spot for retirees. So yeah, I mean, if you actually look at beds per senior population, Florida is not anywhere close to the top of that list.
That's a good point.
But yeah, it's the senior population, right? It's the same thing we're seeing in states like Arizona, California. Obviously, the people like to retire to warm weather states.
Yeah, I think California is up there. I don't think Arizona is up there in the highest, but it's not for the population, because Florida's population compared to, let's say, Texas or something is obviously very different, but it's a senior population, which makes a lot of sense.
Texas is an interesting example. We talk a lot when CON is an issue. Texas is kind of a comparison state we look at because their senior population from a number standpoint is actually pretty similar.
Really?
They have about twice the number of buildings in Texas, though. So
right.
That creates occupancy challenges and, all the downstream impacts from that.
Well, was there ever any recent changes to the CON laws in Florida? Like, did they make any allowances?
Yeah, we do. We have, they modernized CON here in 2014 to really create a market-driven, needs-based program, right? So twice a year, the state looks at current occupancy for buildings in different regions across the state. And they also look at some population trend data to say, every building in the Pinellas County area is basically full, and we're predicting a population growth there. There's probably a bed need. It's a kind of a complicated formula, but essentially it's like, we need more beds here. Then providers can bid on a CON for that area. So
right.
We have been building new buildings. It's probably 35 new buildings in that time that have already come online with several more kind of in the pipeline.
And all those are potential members.
Exactly.
FHCA. Got it. No, that's very interesting because, some states don't abide by that, don't have to worry about that. But for the most part, CON is the rule of law. So it's interesting. I just remembered that I forgot to mention something in regard to your background, which you pointed out to me. You were completely not in policy or anything. You used to be working for Sears for appliances, correct?
Way back when I was in college, that's where I got my start. I think I was selling appliances and didn't even know how to do my own laundry at the time, but somehow they thought it'd be a good idea to hire me to sell appliances. And I learned a lot. It was a pure commission-based job, so really had to. The customer service side of the house was hugely important in that job, and I learned a lot of important lessons doing that, and have just always tried to carry that. I mean, I won't always have the right answer for someone. May take me a little while to find it, but the following up, the letting them know, hey, I'm working on it. Not distracted when you're talking to someone, know that they're the most important person at that moment. All those important customer service skills is something I've really tried to keep with me my entire career.
That is so important. like you said, even now, you're not even dealing with customers. You don't really have customers, but that same model you're able to use, kind of from the sales perspective, where you saw how important it is, get the job done. That's how you get the job done. You work well with people.
Yeah, I really try. I mean, prior to my time with the association, I spent 8 years with our state Medicaid agency, and we've all heard the horror stories of state employees, but I tried to instill in everybody who worked for me at the time, look, every person who calls us, every provider who's calling with a rate issue, every lawyer who's calling, those are your customers. All of your colleagues, those are your customers. Everybody needs to be treated that way, and at that moment, they're the most important customer you got. And I said, I've just really tried to carry that even through my time here at the association. Whatever member I'm talking to, their issue that they call me about may not seem as important to others as the one I dealt with the day before. But for them, it is the most important issue, right? Because it's the one that's keeping them up at night, that they're trying to figure out how they're going to get this billing issue resolved so they can make payroll, so they can pay their vendors, all of those kind of things. So it's extremely important, important to them. So I try and make it important to me.
That's amazing. And it definitely shines through. I know in any of our interactions with the association, it's always been that way. And it's something to be proud of because, like you said, it's not necessary or there's not going to be a consequence if you don't. It's just a matter of how you operate. And that's very commendable.
Thank you.
Let's talk about some of the accomplishments that you have done in the association. You mentioned the Medicaid rates a lot, which was your experience. You've been successful in getting adjustments to the Medicaid rate. What was that like, and what were the challenges in order to get that done?
Yeah, I mean, so in the past 6 years, we've received almost $1 billion in rate increases. And a lot of those are recurring rate increases, right? So that's just in the initial year. So you get $250 million of a rate increase 2 years ago. Well, you're still getting it today. That's $750 million by itself, right? So
what's your commission, 5%?
Lobbyists aren't allowed to work on commission, Steve, unfortunately.
Man. That would have been good.
No, so I mean, we, kind of the rule of thumb out there and just, across all the states, right, is if you're in a heavy Republican state, you're normally going to have a good tort climate, but your reimbursement is going to be a challenge. And then conversely, if you're in a heavily Dem state, should have no issue getting money from Medicaid, but your tort climate is going to be much tougher. Florida is really unique in that we have a really tough tort climate because the trial bar in Florida has really ingrained themselves in the Republican Party more so than they've done in a lot of other states. So tort is always a challenge here, but we still face the same fiscal conservative challenges at the Capitol. So really we've just tried to even fiscally conservative Republicans support Medicaid for, right? It's for seniors, it's for the disabled. So have really tried to do that. We've done a lot of our rate increases and a lot of our focus has been on quality of care. We have a pretty robust quality component to our Medicaid rate, and our providers have really delivered on those incentives and have knocked it out of the park, which makes it a lot easier to go up there and, hey, look, here's how falls have been reduced. Here's how pressure ulcers have been reduced. Here's how we're reducing antipsychotic drugs. As I'm sure you are well aware, this is one of the things I learned pretty early on in the long-term care business is SNF providers respond to financial incentives really strongly.
Yeah.
So when we put that system in place several years ago, we've seen a lot of positive results. So, have really been able to sell those outcomes, right? To do some stuff in the rate space. And, obviously workforce challenges a few years ago, kind of coming out of COVID, was a huge issue that we were able to focus on. But yeah, I mean, we do a lot of work. We bring our members into town pretty much every week during legislative session. We had about 50 members in town yesterday. We had about 65 last week. We've got another 40 to 50 coming next week.
And what's the agenda? Just for them to show and advocate for themselves? Or
yeah, a lot of groups in Florida kind of have like one advocacy day, right? The realtors, the optometrists, the doctors, they do one day, right? And they bring 300 people to town and they all go meet their lawmakers and then they go home and then they're not here for the other 59 days of session. We bring a group up every week, all session long, because we understand what we do in long-term care is so important that they can't forget us, right? There's people in front of them every week reminding them how important it is to support long-term care on policy bills or on budget issues, just kind of depending on what the talking points of the day are. But I think that's one of the reasons we've been so successful is our members are so engaged. The lawmakers get tired of hearing from lobbyists, but when it's somebody back in their district who's talking about, hey, remember that funding increase you did last year? Let me show you pictures of this new therapy gym we just put in. Or, hey, let me brag on you about this new, RN we just hired that we used some of that extra money for, and what a great job they're doing. So, those personal stories they're able to tell.
Yeah, it makes it real. And I'm sure also there's an angle of the fact that you're building relationships. I mean, you are building relationships every day. That's what you do. But for the providers and anybody on the state level to build that, I'm sure that's helpful.
Yeah. And, we do, so we bring our members to town to meet with lawmakers, but we also really encourage our members to host lawmakers in their buildings throughout the year. We do anywhere between 50 and 100 legislative tours throughout the year back in the district, right? And those are always some of my favorite stories because, there's a nursing home administrator in Jacksonville who's touring their local state house rep. And next thing you know, that person's third grade math teacher is a resident of the nursing facility now, right? Or,
right.
Their neighbor that grew up down the street from them when they were a kid is now there. So, it really personalizes long-term care for them because, a lot of these people have not been in a nursing facility since they were in Boy Scouts and went and sang, Christmas carols or, went and brought Valentine's Day cards. So for them to be in those buildings and seeing the work that's being done, again, it helps make all the work here in Tallahassee a little easier.
That's amazing. That is so true. And it's something that I wish other states would incorporate to that level. They do it, but that's really something to learn from. And I'm thinking as you're talking, that personal touch that you mentioned, which you guys are so zeroed in, and the relationships that you're building, obviously that's a piece. And then the outcomes that you said are the other piece that can help make that decision makers, make that decision for you, whether it's reimbursement or policy, whatever it is. I'm curious what you feel out of the two. Obviously you need both. Out of the two, which do you think is a stronger tool that gets the job done? Is it that personalization and that relationship, or is it the data and the outcomes?
You're going to put me in a tough spot with that one. I would say probably more often than not, operating in a state like Florida, again, going back to, we have Republican supermajorities in the House and the Senate. Our governors are Republican. They are always really focused on being good stewards of the taxpayer dollar. In any program they're funding, right? Whether it's K-12 education, higher education, healthcare, if you can show them that, hey, yeah, we asked for a lot of money from you. We get a lot of taxpayer dollars to the Medicaid program, but with that, here's all of the outcomes that we're delivering. That seems to really help here a lot.
That makes sense. And I wasn't asking in order to try to figure that out. I actually thought it would be helpful for any industry, really, because every industry is kind of dealing with that. I'll tell you, I'm dealing with it on my end. I do managed care contracting negotiations. So I have data, I know what rates are, I know what terms are, and I have relationships with the payers. Both of them are equally important, I would think, but I was curious what your perspective was. And bottom line is you're saying outcomes speak for themselves because the proof is in the pudding.
Yeah, I mean, again, then like I said, it could be a little different in a different state, but here in Florida, those outcomes really seem to make a difference. I mean, even on policy bills, right? A lot of times they're following up with us a year later. Hey, we did. A lot of states did kind of the temporary nurse aid program during COVID early, right, where they could, bring someone in and essentially, on the job train to become a CNA. Florida actually made that program permanent. And we were able to show a year's worth of data for the first year of COVID, where this is the number of PCAs we've brought into the program. We call them PCAs in Florida, personal care attendants. This is the number we brought into the program. This is the number that have stuck and are now CNAs. Here's their CNA test passage rate. And, we're able to show all the great outcomes from that. And that was a really powerful selling point. Now, we also brought a few up and, they were, one of my favorites was one of the ladies who had gone through the program had been working in a meat processing facility that shut down early in COVID. single mom, 2 young kids, and she just like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Saw an ad for one of the local nursing facilities was launching this PCA program. She became a PCA, temporarily became a CNA. And then last I heard, I think she's actually working on her LPN now. So
Amazing.
yeah, I mean, the number of displaced hospitality workers who needed work. So, it was kind of a little bit of both, right? We were able to provide the outcomes and the data, but we also were able to bring in a few people to tell those stories of how impactful the program had been.
Those are amazing examples. That's really, really nice. And speaking of that, I know you were also successful in regards to changing in Florida the policy about social workers, behavioral techs, and all those being recognized as staffing that was required. How did you pull that off, and how did you convince them of that?
We tried that for a few years prior to COVID, and weren't really able to get it moving. And then kind of 2022, we made another run at it, and it was, it was a multi-pronged approach, right? We had some members that were very engaged and were in town every week with us working on that issue because it was such an important issue. But we also were able to show that the nursing facility resident of, at that time, 2022, was a lot different than the nursing facility resident of 2002, 2001, when our staffing ratios were put into place. They were younger, they were sicker, there was more PTSD, there was more behavioral issues. So, the traditional staffing model didn't make sense for every building. In some buildings that still made sense, but in other buildings you had a lot more behavioral. Maybe you had more patients where they could really benefit from some more social worker activities. So, we're really able to kind of make that case that, every nursing home is not the same. And why do we kind of push them all into these same staffing requirements? When you have all of these other professionals that are in there and taking care of these patients, shouldn't the facility get credit for that?
That's amazing. And it's very true. But I wonder if I was sitting at the other side of the table and I'm thinking, well, no other states have done this. Why should we be the first ones to recognize this difference and this shift, which may be true, but we'll be the only ones there doing it? Was there any collaboration with other states trying to figure this out together?
There was a few other states who had done something similar. I think Arkansas had done something similar at some point. And then there was another state, I think it was somewhere in New England that was that hadn't had staffing ratios and was putting staffing ratios into place, and they were counting some other folks. So they didn't necessarily shift, but there was some counting of other folks. One of the things that I think really helped there is, our longstanding relationship with lawmakers, where we could kind of say, hey, look, we're not gonna bring you something that's going to dilute care. We've always been, at your side working together on these issues. We were with Emmett, my CEO, was with a lawmaker the other day, and he goes, hey, remember where everyone told you that when you made this change in 2022 that quality of care was going to go down? He says, it's done the opposite, right? We told you then quality of care wasn't going to be impacted, and we've delivered on that. So we were talking about some funding stuff and said the same thing. We're like, look, every time we've made a promise to you, we've kept it. So, and that was something that, we were giving them like quarterly updates after that bill first became law of, here's what's happened with staffing numbers, but here's what's happened with quality numbers. Here's what's happened with outcomes. Here's what's happened with survey issues, and could really make the case that, and we were told, hey, look, if this thing goes sideways, we'll repeal it in a year. But we're able to make the case that the quality didn't go down. Not only did it not go down, it went up.
That's amazing. And now you've built trust. You've built trust that we're going to stand behind what we think is right, and we're on the same team. Quality is not going to go anywhere. That's really, really amazing. It sounds like, I'm a little jealous of you. I'm a little jealous of your day. It's fulfilling. You're helping people. You're getting providers what they need to provide the care. What are the parts that are not fun about your job? What are the challenges that you just can't stand?
I don't know that there are challenges that I can't stand. I mean, you mentioned, you sometimes get to fight these health plans, and it, going to bat with the health plans isn't always fun. But when you're successful, right, that's the goal. So I'm very goal driven in a lot of things. So when I do go there, it's not always fun to bang on the health plans about rates or about payments and things like that. But when a provider calls you and says, "Hey, I just got this $250,000 that I've been owed for 6 months. Thank you." That
all worth it.
That gives you the motivation to then do it again for somebody else tomorrow.
Absolutely. And by the way, I'll share a little tip on negotiations that we do with the health plans. The same thing that you do. We try to show and build trust by showing that we've always done right with them. Things are going to work. Our providers are performing the way they're looking for them to perform. We usually, if we're on the same team and we have this understanding of what their goals and what they're trying to get to, we usually get there. So I understand that.
100%. I share that with my members all the time. Bring the data, bring your quality outcomes to them. They've got, and they're not just dealing with long-term care providers, right? They've got 100 providers coming to them saying, "I want more money." Yep. How do you make yourself different? And that's, you bring your outcomes and you bring your deliverables, and that's how you stand out.
Absolutely. So we were talking about some of the uniqueness in Florida. I know there's a lot more in Florida specifically, like the weather. The weather's nice, but there's also hurricanes. Milton, I think, was the last biggie. Am I right? I'm a New Jersey guy, so I might be off.
Yes, Milton was the last big one last year.
And what kind of advocacy were you called for, or to try to help out in regards to that?
Yeah, so one of the things that we do at the association is, we do some pretty robust emergency preparedness training kind of leading up to the season. But also anytime there's a storm out there that's threatening Florida, we activate our internal emergency response team. And we are, in lockstep with all of the state agencies. We're making sure that CMS waivers get issued on, 3-day hospitalization stay and that kind of stuff, so that the hospitals can discharge appropriately to free up their beds.
Right.
Help our members who are having challenges. Sometimes you get these storms that, Hurricane Ian a few years ago was a great example that impacted, roughly 3/4 of the providers in the state were in some form or fashion impacted. Well, all of a sudden that transportation agreements become difficult at that point, right? You may have,
Right.
5 people you have a transportation agreement lined up with, or a transfer agreement. But if all 5 of them now all of a sudden impacted by the storm, so now we're finding new places to go. So, we're right there in the middle of it, supporting providers before, during, after. We coordinate calls, standing disaster calls every day at 11, typically starting about 2 days before the storm. And then for a few days after the storm until, things are kind of settled back down, where we're helping facilitate information. Everybody from the governor's office, our healthcare administration agency, our Department of Health, our emergency management partners. So, and it's, I've had to call the highway patrol because I had a facility that was trying to bring a bus in to help them evacuate. They were stopped at a roadblock. And the administrator called me. He's like, "Hey, I'm on this bus. I'm trying to get to my building. They won't let me through." So, next thing you know, I'm on the phone with highway patrol, and he gets on the radio and he calls that officer. He's like, "You let that bus through. We got to get these residents out of here."
Whatever it takes.
Yeah, that's, and we get a lot of practice at it. We normally have a couple a year here. So
Yeah, you're used to it. And then on the back end, I'm sure you have to deal with other insurance companies, or they're dealing with it, with damages that happened and making claims and just making sure that the facilities are functioning at the same time as they're dealing with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Property insurance has been a hot button topic in Florida for the last several years on the residential and commercial side. So,
That's something you guys get involved in?
We have we call it our service corps. It's kind of our preferred partnership program here. And we've got a great relationship with, I don't know if you want me to give them a plug here or not, but
Sure, go ahead, plug anyone.
Marsh McLennan Agency. They're a big provider here in Florida, and not just in Florida, but we do a lot of work with them here. And they're locked into long-term care. They've got a team who only does senior living, and so they really understand the challenges. We spend a lot of time with them making sure they understand how the Medicaid reimbursement side of property insurance works, so they can structure deals appropriate for providers. Again, it's a full service association. Anything and everything they need, we'll find the right person for them.
You've never got a call for help and you said, sorry, that's out of our wheelhouse. We can't help you.
No, I try to never give that answer.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Another thing unique that I know in Florida, which are other states that are ACA affiliates that have the integrated care network, which I know you guys have built up. For those that don't know, can you give us a little bit about how that's working, and if the circus does come to their town one day, what your feeling is about that?
Yeah, so we we initially started these conversations with American Healthcare to kind of launch what they're calling their provider-owned networks. We really started even like 2018, 2019. We had initial conversations, and then obviously everything kind of got put on hold. We looked at a relaunch like in 2021, and people just didn't really have the bandwidth to do it. So we kind of launched officially in early 2023. We have about 270 providers signed up in this network. And so really the goal is to go to health plans as a strong, quality-driven provider network, and to work on making sure that reimbursement is adequate and making sure that we're not dealing with all of the hoops they want you to jump through and those kind of things. So we launched our, so we launched in 2023. 2023 was kind of mostly a recruitment year. And then in 2024, kind of hit the ground running. We launched our first value-based Medicaid contract to start 2025. We've got a few Medicare plans that are rolling some things out kind of provider by provider. So it's not in bank yet. But yeah, I mean, it's really opened a lot of doors to kind of be able to go in and say, hey, I'm not here on behalf of 5 providers or 10 providers or 20 providers. I'm here for 270 providers, high quality providers. And again, it's back to the same stuff we were saying earlier, right? Here's our outcomes compared to other providers in the state. Here's everything we're doing to improve those outcomes even more. And we want to be a partner with you. How can we do something together? So it's been really successful for us. I think their first state was Iowa. Iowa's already kind of, I think, had to launch a second network in state because they got too big in their first network. So no, I think especially in states where you have bigger Medicare Advantage penetration, I think it's almost it's a must. If you're not doing it now, your state should definitely consider it. I tell everybody it's not the silver bullet to fix Medicare Advantage, but it's a step that's going to help.
It gives you the leverage with your power and numbers to do something significant that you wouldn't have otherwise.
For sure.
That's very interesting. And I imagine that as providers that are not in the network see this and they see the variance in, number one, the quality that you're holding them to, which they want to do as well, I think you can build that to even larger numbers for sure.
Yeah, we've got a few other large groups that are kind of kicking the tires on it. I mean, if one or two of those pull the trigger, we're going to be 350 plus.
That's really, really
and
nice.
Now you're talking half the providers in Florida together.
Insurance company can't say no to that. It actually makes their job easier because they only have to deal with one point party to get everything done also. So on a clerical side, that's great also.
Yeah, and American Healthcare has put together a great team of folks working on that for them. They've got some real experts in the space doing it. So they've just been great to work with on it. Amazing.
Another thing that I want to just mention in regards to uniqueness, which I know you and I spoke about earlier, is that some states, when they see operators coming in from New Jersey and New York, coming in and into their backyard, and they're like, go back to New York. We don't want you here. We got this all taken care of. But you guys, and I've seen you with your operators, you have tight relationships. You guys work so well together. What's your take on that when you see these operators coming into your state?
Yeah, I think my phone rings with New Jersey and New York area codes more these days than Tampa and Orlando. But no, I mean, look, we want everybody to be successful, right? You can be from Pensacola or you can be from Brooklyn, and we want you to be successful because ultimately, if you're a successful operator, the care being delivered is better. Your staff is happier and more taken care of. So, we've really tried to embrace it from day one. We didn't, we tried to do everything we could to be as welcoming and inviting. I mean, looking at making sure that event dates don't conflict with religious holidays, making sure that, we have kosher food available at events if that's what's needed, or, just anything and everything we can do. I mean, we've, Emmett, myself, and another one of our team members actually went to New York last year for about a week and spent time with folks there. And, just a listening session, right? What's keeping you guys up at night, right? What are your challenges in Florida? What can we do to help? So, I dealt with some early on from some of the existing operators, right? As well, these guys just want to come in and cut quality to the bone and pull money out of the buildings. And I said, let's not pretend that there hasn't always been those kind of operators, right? That's not, but that hasn't been my experience at all. I mean, I've got to work with some really great operators who are investing in their buildings. And we have a lot of older buildings in Florida, kind of going back to that CON issue. Right. A lot of older buildings that needed those capital improvements. And so, folks are spending money on their buildings, they're hiring good people, they're investing in quality. So it's, same thing. Everybody wants the same thing, right? Making sure they have enough reimbursement to provide the care they want to provide.
That's a great outlook, and it's true. It's really true. Like I said, if you guys are outcome driven, you're looking for outcomes, you're getting them, you're seeing them. What better thing there is there than just good care? Yeah,
that's the goal at the end of the day, right?
Yep. So speaking about your relationship with operators, this is what you do. You're networking with them. I've seen you at conferences doing that. You're doing this professionally, but some of us have to do this on our own. We go to conferences. We got to network with people we don't know. Could you share any tips off the top of your head on meeting new people, networking, building relationships? This is kind of, what you got to do on a regular basis, but we all have to do it on a smaller level. So I'm curious if you have anything to share for our listeners on that aspect.
Just don't be afraid to put yourself out there, right? I mean, if you're at whatever the conference is, right, whether it's ECAP or it's the American Healthcare Convention or, it's LTC 100 or take your pick, right? Everybody's there for the same reason. You already have something in common with these people, right? They're all somehow involved in the long-term care industry. So, it's just walk up to somebody and say hello. And then the conversation goes from there. A lot of times other people are hesitant to do that. So if you can go out there first and kind of make that introduction, that, everybody wants to talk to you, right? They're out there for that reason.
So don't be afraid.
Yeah.
Just step up and do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome.
I did sales for a while, like I said, so that probably helps with some of that. But yeah, no, I mean, it's, again, you have something in common because you're all at the same conference.
Right. You don't have to make a connection of, hey, you breathe and I breathe. We have something. We have already other stuff that we do in common.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, that's awesome. So to wrap up, I don't know what our time is, what your time is, but we always like to play a game at the end, and we chose for today, we're playing some AI trivia. And the way it's going to work, for our listeners, none of us seen any questions or anything like that. You're going to choose any topic. It could be relative to your career or relative to anything. You're going to choose a topic, and I'm going to ask ChatGPT right now to give us 5 multiple choice questions on that, which I'm going to ask you. So none of us have seen the questions. None of us know what's going to happen. Hopefully, if there's anything that's inappropriate, blame ChatGPT because we have nothing to do with it. Any topic that comes to mind.
I'm really hoping I don't embarrass myself here, Steve. I just kind of spent the last 40 minutes telling you how great we do things here in Florida, and so hopefully it didn't go sideways.
No, it's not going to be embarrassing.
I mean, I think we need to talk about Florida nursing facilities, or
okay.
Let's see what it says.
Florida nursing facilities. Here we go. Excuse me while I clumsily type. Please create multiple choice questions.
I think you could do a whole podcast episode on ChatGPT and how nursing facilities are using it.
There's so much to do. There's so much on AI. I know that we're working on, but it's going to be a new world. I'm actually looking forward to it.
I try and I don't use it much, but I always just try and a couple times a week when I'm getting ready to do something anyway, just go see what ChatGPT tells me and, playing with prompts and things like that just to keep using it, right? So you get comfortable with it, because at some point it is going to be an even bigger part of our day to day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's a smart thing to do. And we have our 5 questions up here.
Okay.
You ready, Tom?
I hope so.
Question number 1. What is a key factor in determining Medicaid reimbursement rates for Florida skilled nursing facilities? A, quality metrics and patient outcomes. B, the number of flamingos spotted on facility grounds. C, whether or not the administrator can beat the state legislator in a golf match. Or D, how convincingly the CFO can say we really, really need this money.
So we use D a lot to be successful at the Capitol, but I don't think that's the right answer. And the flamingo is not currently the state bird, but there is a bill up this session to redesignate the flamingo as the state bird of Florida.
Really? So what is the state bird?
It's the mockingbird currently, along with like 17 other states. So
should definitely be the flamingo.
I'm not paid to lobby on behalf of Big Flamingo, but I may be working on that one pro bono. I'm gonna say A, and pretty confident about that one because I was around when we changed the reimbursement, and that was a big part of it.
This is to your credit, and you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I'm gonna go on to question number 2. Oh wow, it must have been listening to our conversation, which may have been true. Florida is a certificate of need state. What does this mean for skilled nursing facilities? A, new facilities must prove there's a need before they can be built. B, every new facility must have a sign that says, "Welcome to Florida. Please pay your CON fees." C, the governor personally inspects each new facility while riding an earboat. Or D, facilities can be approved if they have at least one resident named Marge.
Well, see, it can't be B because our signs in Florida now say "Welcome to the free state of Florida." So it's that. It's definitely A. It's definitely you got to prove there's a need.
Ding, you're correct. Do I have any sound effects for that? Okay, we'll work on that. Number 3, I'm sensing a small pattern here. When a hurricane impacts a skilled nursing facility in Florida, what is the one challenge with reimbursement? A, insurance doesn't always cover the full cost of evacuations and repairs. B, residents suddenly start demanding beachfront property rates. C, Medicaid briefly considers reimbursing in sand dollars instead of actual dollars. Or D, the facility must prove that the storm wasn't just a very aggressive pool party. It's D. I mean, hands down.
Well, you know, our residents do like the beach, so that's we've heard those requests a few times, but I think it's A again.
What's going on? Why doesn't ChatGPT mix it up instead of giving us A answers?
I'd have been
Let's see about the last 2.
Had school worked out this way.
Yeah, right. We had achievement tests in Jersey where you just fill in. Did you have that in Florida?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, so we just either picked a nice pattern or just stuck with a good letter. So here's a winning letter here. Number 4, Florida skilled nursing facilities have successfully advocated for quality-based reimbursement. How does ChatGPT know about this? What does this mean? A, facilities are rewarded financially for meeting specific care quality benchmarks. B, the cafeteria food is now required to have good vibes only policy. C, the more times a resident says bingo, the higher the reimbursement rate. Or D, facilities can now submit best effort stickers to ACA as proof of compliance.
We could talk about proof of compliance for a whole nother hour. But I think
will stickers do the job or no?
No, we've got a tough regulatory climate here that we deal with. But it's going to take a little more than stickers. But it's A again. But hopefully some of the money does lead to better food. So that's B's a little bit there, right?
There you go. It does bring it. It does bring it. Okay, here we go. Final question. Are you uncomfortable so far? Or are you good?
I've struggled with a few of these.
Okay. What makes Florida's skilled nursing facility landscape unique compared to other states? A, it requires all residents to pass a swimsuit competition before admission. Just kidding, but imagine the chaos. Okay. B, it has more skilled nursing facilities than most states, as in one of the largest CON states. C, snowbirds drive up seasonal demand, meaning reimbursement fluctuates with the migration patterns of Northeasterners. Or D, the official state bird is actually an air conditioning unit because it's essential for survival. Can you advocate for that one?
Yeah. That would be interesting. It's interesting, the snowbird piece. We do tend to see occupancy fluctuations during parts of the year, right? We kind of know that during certain times of the year, occupancy is going to be better because you just have more people here that you do more rehab for.
Of course, November to February, probably.
Yeah, it is. It's there's kind of summertime occupancy and then there's wintertime occupancy goals.
Yep.
So I think I don't even remember the options now because I got distracted by the air conditioner. What was A again?
It requires all residents to pass a swimsuit competition
definitely
before
not
admission.
That one. Definitely not that one. I think it
Are
was.
you sure?
Was B the one about a lot of beds, nerd buildings, even though it's a CON state?
Yes.
We'll go with that one.
You are correct. Congratulations. You got every single one correct. You are a ChatGPT superstar.
There's a few things I know in this world pretty well, but I guess Florida nursing facilities are certainly one of them.
Did a great job. I'm actually impressed with the questions. They were pretty on target. So I'll give ChatGPT credit for that too. Tom, I hope that we relax you a little bit. I know you had a pressure day. I hope this took the weight off a bit, and we definitely enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was. I enjoyed it for sure, and thank you. I love the work our members are doing. So anytime I can talk about the great job they're doing, I certainly look forward to it.
Thank you so much for everything you do. On behalf of all of our listeners, people that are watching, thank you. Please keep on fighting the good fight because it's helping everybody.
Every day. Thank you, Steve. I appreciate it.
You had to have the last word. I can't believe it. I'm kidding. Thanks so much. We'll see ya.